Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. And yourself?
Fantastic, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're actually the first man I've gotten to have on my show.
Oh my gosh. Well,
I know.
tell me about you and your show. I want to know what's going on.
Sure. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to apparently my parents' dog is very excited about something. Guard the house. um, so I'm trying to increase visibility for the equine therapy world and other people that are trying to empower people just around the world, because people in the world are really struggling right now, and it's important
Hmm.
for them to know in which ways they're able to find more support. Because
Cool.
yeah, I found that a lot of people don't actually know what it is that we do and the amazing things that horses can provide us as individuals.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, and to get to learn more about like what good partnership is with our horses,
Yeah.
it's really important to do that connection work and like honoring them as sentient beings. And I think that the more people understand about like what we do in the equine therapy field, it will give them a better realization as to like what horses are. It's just like
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
beautiful sentient creatures, and that they're not just a tool. And the more
Yeah.
people realize that, the more they'll be likely to actually engage with their horses in a healthier.
Yeah. Well, how exciting that you're doing this. Thank you for reaching out to me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to be here to help with any way I can. So,
Thank you. I really
shoot.
appreciate that. I love to hear about people who are living their dreams, because I feel like a lot of people are disempowered and they think that it's not possible for them to live their dream at all. So when I get to see people that are actually like living their dream, I think it's important for people to get to hear their story so that they
Cool.
can be inspired to get to hopefully like live their own dream.
Cool. Really cool. Cool. Well, shoot. Tell me what you want to talk about. I'm here for you now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So tell me a little bit more about you. Like, what are you doing out in Montana other than living your dream and doing amazing things with horses?
Well, thank you. Uh, Montana has been a blessing for us. I've got family here. I grew up here, and I spent most of my life here. I spent about 6 or 7 years away from here teaching and actually educating myself so that I could go out and teach in the horsemanship world.
That's
Um,
cool. Where did you
Both of
go?
them. I moved to Colorado, moved to Pagosa Springs, Colorado, where I met a man named Pat Parelli. I spent
I'm
an
familiar with
enormous
his work.
amount of time. Yeah. I spent about 6 years in his back pocket. I met my
Wow.
wife, my soon-to-be wife there. She was also studying with him, and
Congratulations.
yeah, and then we stayed with him for about another 6 years, teaching his programs around the country, around the world. My wife from New Zealand, we travel down south and teach down there as well. And uh, and then I moved back to Montana. We had a baby girl. I thought it'd be nice to be closer to family and home for her. And uh, and we've ever since we've been here. And, I travel quite a bit. I'm in fact leaving on a plane here in a few weeks to head over to Rhode Island. Fingers crossed. Travel
Right.
work right now during this time, but travel quite a bit to teach. So a lot of my business is not actually local. Local people find me here and they say, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea you were here. I thought you'd be more, advertised here in Montana, but I'm just not. I kind of prefer to have my Montana dream be my home, and then I work abroad. I work out in the country and I work out overseas sometimes, and then I also do a ton of coaching. So online, I have massive online programs, courses, and home study coaching and stuff like that we do here. So that's what keeps us busy.
What kind of
Yeah,
coaching do you do? So I'm also a life coach, so that's what I'm doing is the virtual life coach. There's lots of things that are part of
yeah,
the program that I'm doing.
yeah,
Um, Interviews are
yeah.
just one part.
So I do a ton of horsemanship coaching. So I get people on board with me, and we walk through the most basic horsemanship stuff for beginners. And then as people advance, we go all the way to the top. We have students right now who are doing Grand Prix level dressage, We have
Cool.
students who are doing Grand Prix jumping. We have students who are doing elite level reining patterns and slide stops and flying lead changes. So we have the background and the experience and the knowledge to teach people at every level. Our average student ends up kind of being in that intermediate level, just sort of beginner to intermediate. They want to learn about the horse, how to have a connection, relationship with their horse. And there's only a handful of students, and you may come across this as well, who are really driven to go to that next level.
Right.
But we still have them. We coach them all the way up. So that's mostly what we do. I have done some life coaching in the past, like you have. But this always pulls me back, the horsemanship. I get enough clients and enough business that always pulls me back into teaching and helping them learn about their animals.
That's fantastic.
Cool.
Like your soul's purpose, right?
Right. Right. It's not to say that it doesn't have its challenges, like any lifelong career. I learned that I wanted to do this around 16, 17 years old. I got my first horse, and I didn't grow up with horses. I had an older sibling who had them around, but I got my first horse around 16, and he was a good old boy. I learned with a guy named Monty Roberts how to train.
I've heard of Monty Roberts. Yeah. This is really cool.
Cool. Well, you cut me off anytime. I can chat all day long. So
no, it's great. The only reason that I'm cutting you off is because I know that we have just a shorter amount of time because I have to go at 11. Yeah. So I want to make sure that we can get as much to the audience as possible. Yeah. So yeah. I always try and front load it since we don't really know each other and give us the opportunity to chat a little bit, to connect and be like, hey, who are you anyways?
Yeah. Great. Well, I'll keep it short then. I'll keep it real short. My 16 found a horse, 17 found another horse that said, you don't know what you're doing. And that propelled me into the training world. I said, I've got to know what I'm doing. And I found myself digging into every possible trainer and their programs. And then finally found Pat Parelli, and he clicked with me, I clicked with him. So I spent the majority of my time there. But fortunately, got to study with the best of his students and him as well. But there are people who can do such amazing things, and I've had the good fortune to be with those people. And now my coaching platform, we bring those people on board, and they do live interviews with my students, and it's super fun.
That's so cool. Did I send you questions for this? I can't remember.
You may have. I haven't seen them.
Okay. You're like, I've been really busy with life, and that's the way this is.
So we just shoot from the hip. I'm here.
Oh yeah, no, that's totally fine. So what I'll do is oh gosh, it's the goofy recording thing again. Oh my goodness gracious. So
so you're recording right now, I can see, but that's cool.
No, it is. Good. So I tried to I'm kind of new with the whole Zoom thing just in the last 3 weeks. And so I was like, oh yeah, like I'll hit this recording button, and then I send it out, and then I forgot to like unclick it because I'm still figuring out the whole editing aspect of things. I recently I didn't convert one, and then I started another one, and then I oh my gosh, I was just like, what's happening?
You'll figure it out. I've been doing it now for about a year now, so I'm getting used to it, but it does have little hiccups.
Right, you're like, the learning curve can be a little bit steep. Although one of my buddies, I need to send her something to edit, so maybe this can be like a nice one for me to be like, okay, Lex, like here you go, cut it at this spot and split it into 2 different things for me. Okay, great.
Yes, you might be able to do that. Although people love organic, authentic material, so you might. It's
true. I mean, we could always just be like, hey guys, so today we were going to do this fun thing of like, this is what the beginning of the interviews look like before we actually do it.
Yeah, that's right. People listen to it. It's fine. It's fun.
It's totally fine. We can do that too.
Yeah. We like it. We like it. We like watching people live their lives. So shoot from the hip. Tell me where you want to start.
It's so this in the beginning. So for our channel today, for Horsepower, Empowerment Through Connection, apparently we get to do an absolutely organic experience. So today I'm interviewing Don Jessop, who is located in Corvallis, Montana, and he is living the dream. And so this is a really exciting because he's actually the first male, as I was saying earlier in our organic conversation, to get to be on the show. And it's a slightly different sort of coaching and getting to do the horse mastery. And I'm excited to hear more about that. So you were saying that you started at age 16.
Yeah.
And was that a horse that your parents bought, or had you worked hard doing side projects and bought your own horse?
It's the second, the latter. I worked my tail off and found a horse for $1,000, and he was a 2-year-old quarter horse named Moose. And he and we learned together. I learned how to start a horse for the first time, and then yeah, it was tricky, but I was young and willing and athletic, and I wasn't scared, and so we got along. Then I met a friend who was an avid endurance racer, and he invited me to join him on some rides. I quickly learned that my 2-year-old quarter horse wasn't the right match for that. You know, he needed to be older and maybe a different breed if I really wanted to compete and win. So I found myself an Arabian gelding he said to me, "You don't know enough." And I remember on one particular trail ride, I was pulling so hard on the reins that one of them snapped off and broke. And all I had was one rein to spin him into a circle until I could get off of him. And I thought, man, I just got to learn more. So I just dove into my studies. And from about 18 years old to about 24, 25-ish, I was just dedicated. I went down into that world. People often say, "Did you go to college?" And I say, well, sort of. Certainly put in the same amount of time in my education, but not a traditional accredited school. So that took me on this training path, and now here I am in Montana teaching my students and clients all about horsemanship.
That's fabulous. You know, learning is like, you never stop learning. College is meant for some people, but other people just don't learn in that traditional format. Like I went to college for 10 years. I went to like 10 different colleges. I've got a bunch of degrees, but I found that I've learned the most in life by actually living it. You know, and like I acquired a lot of life experience and a lot of student debt. But I definitely, the things that I learned is like interpersonally going through the challenges that I went through while I was trying to go to college. That was worth way more than I ever got out of an actual degree, I feel like. And a lot of it too, like I went to the college for education, and traditional education was just not in my soul's alignment. So it's kind of funny when you try and like put like a square peg in a round hole, like it just doesn't fit. Like you can shove it in eventually, like the corners will wear off. It'll never be the
right.
So I always really love and appreciate it when people can follow their heart like you did and just like know that that's what you were meant to do and get to dedicate your life to that, because you're able to go a lot deeper into your practice, which is why you're probably so exceptional at what you do with the horses, why you can guide so many people down their path in such an effective manner.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a real quick question? Is my sound coming through clearly?
Yeah,
you hear me okay?
Good.
Okay, good. Yeah. I just realized my microphone was set off to the side and I haven't usually put it there, so.
No, you're all good. I feel like your voice probably carries just fine over long distances. So.
Well, yeah, when you're out in a sandy, hot arena and you're 300 feet away from a student who's just about to get bucked off, you've got to say something quite quick and loud. Yeah.
It's a nice range, you know, from soft to.
Yeah, you got to have it all. Yeah.
That's right. So what would you say like your favorite style of riding is? What's
favorite style of riding? Oh, yeah. I'm an English rider by trade. My favorite would be to ride English, mostly because it's comfortable. I love the English saddles. They form fit to the horse better.
Closer contact.
Western saddles. You can see behind me, I've got both. but I'll ride my Western saddle if I do any kind of cow training, roping type stuff. If I plan for that, then I'll usually put that on. But most of my personal riding is casual riding at this stage in my career. I have been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. You know, when I first started, I wanted to be able to say that I've done everything, and now at this point in my career, I can't say that I've mastered everything, but I can say that I've done nearly everything you can think of with a horse, from swimming a horse to teaching them to lie down to chasing cows and roping to jumping Grand Prix level to just dressage at the Grand Prix level, piaffe and passage and canter pirouettes and tempi lead changes. So I've experienced and taught all of those things. And now I find myself, if I get on my horse, it's strictly for, not always, occasionally I have to dial something in a little tighter if I'm going to film something, but
Sure.
Most of the time I'm off. In fact, just 2 days ago, I was off in these beautiful mountain trails here in Montana and just loving the cool early morning weather. And that's peaceful to me. That's what I like to do. And I usually do it in an English saddle because it's just more comfortable.
That's cool. Does your wife work with you at all?
She does. She works directly with me. She teaches as well. She rides as well. She, I can say, is a more determined rider than I am, in the sense that she will go further into one category than I will. I wanted to have this full spectrum. She really is becoming a master of dressage.
Oh, lovely.
And, so she's primarily an English rider, and she's teaching as well. Yeah.
Right on. What was it about Parelli that like really spoke to you?
So I studied with Monty Roberts to begin with. Then I met John Lyons, and I really liked John Lyons and his informative educational style. But he was kind of dry too. I don't know if you've ever studied him. You really have to be a dedicated horse person to sit down and watch 2 hours worth of him talking through a lesson, and that was his filming style. But I absorbed it all. And then one day a friend tipped me off to Pat Parelli. I went to a live seminar, and he made it so alive and so fun. He talked about games, and the one thing that really I connected with even more than all of that was he said that he was going to change the world for horses and make it a better place. And I've never heard that before from a trainer. Trainers are typically about getting a few bucks or helping a few students, and they stay quite small. He really had this big vision. He wanted the world to become more natural with horses. And so I glommed onto that. I thought that was pretty cool. And I dedicated nearly 12 years of my life to him and then his program, and fell in love with it. Ultimately, finding my own style, writing my own book and literature and video courses that differ slightly and take you a little deeper dive into the mastery side of it. So,
what's the name of your book?
Name of my book?
I'm like, do you have any around that you can like flash on the screen to show people like visual representations?
I should, but I think they're all in my my office. However, what I can do is you could share your screen and go to my website. You can see a picture of it.
Oh, I will absolutely put links in the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And the description that people can go to. And so they can just click on your website and just peruse all your wonderful material that you have available. And hopefully we'll be able to see what you have to offer, maybe get some more coaching clients to help people dive deeper into their mastery with horses. I love to promote different people because everybody has a different life story. And just how you're talking about like Parelli clicked more with you than John Lyons. It's like everybody has something that resonates with them, because it's not necessarily that one person, one trainer is better than another trainer. I mean, some obviously are.
Yeah. Different. Everyone has something. Yeah.
Right. But everybody has something to teach you if you're willing to keep an open mind. And what might be right for a person at this particular time in their life, they might be able to meet another person later on as they evolve, you know?
Yeah. So my book is called Leadership in Horses. And I use a formula called C4B. or see before. Actually, it's just a little bit easier to remember. It's if you see before what happens, then you can fix it. But it's about connection, boundaries, bonding, bravery, and basic skills. And it's those four things. Those four B's are the four things that all trainers do. I wanted to write a book that would cross over, that people could say, you know, what is it that makes Pat Parelli good, but what is it that makes John Lyons good? What is it that makes Walter Zettel or Martin Black or Karen Rolfe or anybody, any name you've heard of that you appreciate, that you like this person? What is it that makes them good? And I've noticed that it's these four things. They are very good at setting boundaries. They are very, very, very good at bonding. They make a really definite intent to connect with the horse on a deeper level, to appreciate the horse and show that they care. And then they train the horse to be brave, and they train the horse some really basic skills. And they do this really early. So on day one, if you give me a horse, I can actually walk you through those four B's, and you'll say, oh, no wonder you're so good with my horse. People often say at a clinic, how can you do this and I can't? And I say, well, because you're not setting boundaries like the mama mare would. You're not bonding. The horse doesn't even like you. Now, that's the big deal. You got to get the horse to like you before you even consider training them. Why train an animal that says, I don't like you? Why sit on an animal that says, I don't like you? So
Do you
that
talk to
book,
the people about why the horse doesn't like them?
yes. Yeah. Yeah. We want you to know that there's some things you can do to help that horse really appreciate you and really like you. But as a prey predator thing, they're just naturally not going to like a human at first. So we could get past that, and then we dig into the deeper bonding stuff, figuring out what the horse likes so that you can give it to them. And it's not always food. You know, they like other things too. So we dive into that in that book, Leadership in Horses.
Interesting. So you said it's something that I find interesting about the prey predator, how they automatically don't like us. So I was thinking about that. So like, I feel like I've met a lot of horses that just naturally like human. I run across more horses that like humans. So I'm curious more about that conversation about the prey predator aspect, because like, I don't know, there's some horses, like I think of Mustangs, and and they're wild, and that keys in more to me as something where they're like more wary of human beings, and a horse that's been mistreated by human beings being more cautious and not necessarily liking them because they're afraid, they haven't had a good experience. But like a domesticated horse, with a person that approaches them slowly and with respect, I feel like it's more, there's curiosity. I mean, that I'm just like curious about how all that goes.
So you're right. A domestic horse has a better chance of liking you right off the bat. They've already had some good experiences with people, being fed, being handled.
Yeah, or at least a neutral space, not necessarily not liking people.
Yeah. What I mean by not liking people is, maybe I should rephrase it to say not liking what you intend to do.
Yeah, I think that's definitely better, like cleaner language about it, because I think it's important for people to not think like, oh, like, especially when we work with people with the life coaching with horses and equine and assisted learning and mental health, that conversation oftentimes comes up when a horse walks away from a person and the person says, oh, the horse doesn't like me. And it's just like, well, it's not necessarily you. The horse might not like the energy that you're projecting because of something that's incongruent within you.
Yeah, there is that for sure.
Because that's like, in my mind, that's two different things, because like we aren't necessarily the dysfunctional things that we're projecting. Does that make sense?
That's right. That's right. I get a lot of people that say horses don't like men. And I say to them, that's not necessarily true. But men do often put off an energy that horses don't like. But
it's
some
more
women
aggressive.
do too. Some women put off that same kind of energy. So it's more like horses
for sure.
Horses don't like this really strong predatory intent to do something. They prefer to be more passive and say, look, this is aggressive. I don't care for this. So that's why I say, if you're ever going to train an animal to do something, there is a method to training that's quite natural, but it begins with the bond where the animal
Yeah, I totally
starts to
agreed.
appreciate you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the humans, I feel like oftentimes give really confusing signals. And people
Yeah.
oftentimes they work in generalities, they work too quickly. They don't really focus on the subtle things of mastery that
Yeah.
allows a horse to truly understand what it is that they're trying to communicate. And oftentimes I found that people, when working with their horses, they ask something and they get frustrated, like, why isn't the horse listening to me? Right. And it's like, well, because you've told them like 16 different things in like that 1 minute like segment of
Yeah.
time when you're trying to work with them, and then the horse is like, I don't know what you want from me, and like the person is just like,
Yeah.
in which
Yeah.
I'm sure is what you're like working on with the people and trying to enlighten them and empower them to be able to be more aware of themselves and their horse. And
Yeah. That's so cool what you're doing. Um, in my book, Leadership and Horses, I get into that as well, like the 6 things that horses, the 6 reasons horses don't do what we want.
right.
And that's important to kind of categorically organize your thoughts so you can look at it and say, why isn't my horse doing what I want? It's not me. Maybe it's just something I'm doing. I shouldn't take this so personally. Maybe my horse is distracted right now, because they get
Exactly.
distracted quite easily. So we dig into that too.
That's great. When you work with the people with the horses, do you notice the person being able to regulate themselves more, like emotionally regulate, and to become more just generally self-aware when they're working with you, like in profound
Uh,
experiences with the horses?
yes, it does. But as a trainer, see, your line of work is slightly different and more beneficial for that exact experience. My line of work will challenge people um, in a way that sometimes doesn't leave them in a Zen-like grounded state. Sometimes that's intentional. I will present an opportunity or a challenge to the person that I know will frustrate them, but not in an unsafe way, but just leave them in a place where they experience a little bit of frustration. And then I guide them through the frustration, because I think that's useful. If you're going to be a trainer, you have to learn how to deal with frustration.
For
You
sure.
cannot be frustrated with the animal, otherwise you turn into a predator.
Absolutely.
Frustration looks exactly like predatory behavior from an animal perspective. So I'll point them into a challenge, and they have to take on the challenge, and then they get frustrated, and then I back them off and say, now, how do you get past this? How do
Yeah.
you get through this and maintain this emotional fitness? So,
Well, what's important about that is that people only tend to grow in a space of discomfort. And a
right.
lot of people aren't comfortable being in an uncomfortable space.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds kind of funny to say that, but it's
Yeah.
important to recognize that, I mean, as long as you're not putting yourself in a place of actual danger, discomfort is a really healthy place to get to be in. And I'm
Yeah.
happy to hear you say how like you guide them through that space of frustration into like where they need to go. Because it's just really important to be able to create that dynamic, not just with the horse, but with your trainer, because you have to be able to trust your trainer that they're going to take you safely through that engagement and to
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah.
Because some trainers don't. They'll just be like, no, like do X and Y and Z without any actual interest of getting you to the other side of a functional
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a tricky. I'm sure, as you've experienced as well. If I give one frustrating experience to help a person get through it, I need to give about 9 really positive, easy experiences to make them feel like they're a winner, and they didn't have anything happen that was bad. So I have to balance that all the time. I'm almost keeping a clock or a ticker going, saying, okay, this person has about 6 or 7 good experiences. I'll give them a few more, and then I'm gonna have them experience something challenging and see how they deal with that. So it's tricky.
Yeah, no, I imagine that it would be. And how do you engage with people? Because some people, you know, people in the world, we all like to laugh about this, right? Because you have people in the horse world that are like wicked crazy, like legit, like totally.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I cannot deny this fact. Yes. Yeah. Crazy horse people.
Crazy horse.
Crazy in
Yeah.
love with their horses, and very, very, very how do I say? I wrote an article years ago called the instant expert syndrome. It's
Oh
one
God, it's so great. Can you send that to me so I can just like
yeah,
podcast it all over?
yeah. It's once you experience a few days with a horse, it happens every single time. A student will often feel like they've got it, like they understand it. And this is not horse related specifically, it's people related. You can take a few golf lessons and feel like you're really good at golf until you actually go play and keep score. So there's a little bit of bravado that's necessary to be around a horse. You can't be too timid because you got 1,000 pounds next to you, but sometimes that bravado turns into, well, I know what I'm doing, and that can be challenging to interact with people. As soon as somebody says I know that, or I do that, or they kind of shut you off and say I don't need to hear anymore right now, or they get defensive and say, hey, what I know is valuable too. That's harder to reach through to that person. They often have to back off and explain or validate their accomplishments, and then slowly guide them into a different kind of thought process that's just different, because there's not one rule that helps you through the whole mastery picture. There's hundreds of different techniques and ideas and timing and feel, and for
Absolutely.
a student to say, well, this is how you do it because this is what I learned in my lesson yesterday, I often have to say, there's more to it. There's a lot more
Dive a
to
little
this.
deeper.
Yeah. So don't be an expert yet. Always stay open. And my best students, my top level students, are always the ones that say, give me more. And they often ask me, should I study with this other person? And I say, yes, please. Don't just study with me. If you
I
can
love that.
afford it, study with everybody. So you'll always learn something. Just as soon as you hear a trainer say, this is how you do it, be cautious, because that may be a way that you do it, but not the only way that you do it. And I want to keep you open-minded to mastery, to being elegant and precise and taking yourself to the top level.
Yeah, that's why I love promoting other life coaches and trainers and different people in the field, different models, because it's just so important to have an open mind and also the abundance mindset. Because when you start when you get that scarcity mindset, then you're trying to keep people trapped in there, right? And just stay with you no matter what's happening with them. But when you have that abundance mindset, you're like, no, like I can honor you as a whole person. It's not about me. It's about wanting you to have the best experience possible, and knowing that I'll teach you what I can. And when you're ready to open the next door, then you can expand and we can come back. And it's just like this beautiful flow and connection and honoring the process and our industry and the horse and the person. It's the biggest picture.
Yeah. It's fun. That's been exciting. So I don't know if I answered your question about connecting with people. It's just where my brain took me. So please feel free to quantify any question you have.
No, I appreciate that. It's just about getting to be authentic and vulnerable and just have a communication cycle. That's what, like, I asked you the clarifying question about what you meant with people being like the horses being afraid of us, because I think that a lot of our viewers don't necessarily know a lot about horses. Some of our viewers know a tremendous amount about horses. And so that's why I just try to be as specific as we can, because I know there's a depth of knowledge within you. And so just honoring that. I'm like, hey, I want to have clarity too.
Yeah, clarity is power. Having clarity is so much power. In fact, I'll sometimes stop in the middle of a writing session, close my eyes, and just picture what I'm about to do, so that I gain that clarity, and then my horse can understand it so much better. And I just have my students do the same. Clarity is so, so powerful.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And the thing about working with horses is that you could literally study with the best of the best your whole life and come to the end of your life and still have more to learn about horses. I feel like.
Yeah, that's right.
Because,
that's right. There is definitely a limit to what a horse can do. Just like there's limits to what we can do. You can only go forwards, backwards, right, left, up, and down, and at different speeds and at different feel and timing. But the amount of psychology that it takes to really connect with an animal and guide them through, a horse has a brain of a 4-year-old human child. according to a lot of animal psychology studies they've done. And
Interesting.
that means we've got an animal that's highly distractible, highly energetic, easily confused, and emotional at the tip of a hat. So to train this animal, to connect with them is quite simple. You just give them space and time, and lots and lots and lots of time, and they start to fall in love with you. But to train them requires this whole other level of, well, if you want to do it right, if you want to do it the forceful way, tie down and force them into a behavior that's not always very friendly. But to train them, it requires you some really cognitive thinking to really back down and say, what am I going to do right now? And when am I going to reward my horse? And how big should the reward be before you even ask for the thing that you want? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, hold on. Sorry. Try and buy us a couple more minutes.
No problem. I'm the same.
Thank you.
So my wife also wrote a book called Dreams with Horses. It's I do believe I have a copy of that one here, or not.
I'm sure it's connected on the website, right?
That is a novel. That's a novel about her own life experiences, kind of twisted into a really sort of spiritual guide.
Oh, that sounds cool.
How horses guided her through her life as a teenager and into her 20s. So it's a really fun read. Dreams with Horses.
Dreams with Horses. I think I saw that on your Facebook page.
Yeah.
We'll definitely link that in there as well. That sounds like a really beautiful story. Speaking of dreams, and since we have a short time frame, since I have to run, I'm like, I feel like we might have to do a secondary interview.
We can absolutely meet again.
I love it. So before we go, and since you're living the dream, could you please share with our viewers some of the obstacles that you overcame in your own personal life to be able to accomplish your dreams?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so obstacle number one. I didn't grow up with horses, so it was a big transition to, find property to put my horse there and graze them and look after them. It was a big financial commitment.
Yeah.
I have a very, very close family, a very large family. My mom had 13 kids.
Holy wow.
Yeah. And we're all like just so close. We had a really, really, really good family growing up. And so I left all of that to go to get my education, and that was challenging too. So there's a number of those early challenges that you meet. The later challenges that come up, most people don't think about, is there's something called burnout, where you're just so overwhelmed, maybe even injured. And I've had a few of those injuries with horses.
Yeah.
Knock your confidence down to zero, and they knock your energy level down to zero. And those have been some of my biggest hurdles in my dream. And living the dream is to actually live it. Is to, sometimes you want to back away from it and say, I've been hurt. Maybe I should do something else. But this is what I'm so good at. This is my passion. So I have to find a way through that. And I have discovered many, many resources that have helped keep me tied to that bigger picture and keep me here, and keep me in love with it, not just doing it mechanically, but still passionate about it.
Yeah.
That's important to me.
No, that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What would you say like one of your more difficult injuries was to overcome with working with the horses?
So I've had about 4 horse-related concussions. So one thing that happens let's see, my camera's going out of focus. But one thing that happens in my line of work, specifically because I'm a natural horseman, I get the worst horses. People say, I can't deal with this horse, he's a problem, so I end up with these horses. And I've helped them through so that the person can then start to communicate and be safer. But as a result, I often end up on the ground because the horse is just too much. And we do a ton of groundwork and preparation to get there. But when you've got a horse that's got a hair trigger and you've got everything lined up just perfectly, and then the wind blows just wrong, it's enough to trigger them, to cause them to react. And if you've done your prep work, you get less of a reaction. But early in my career, I did not do my prep work correctly, and I ended up falling, hitting my head, injuring my neck. I still have quite a bit of residual pain left from some of my early injuries, and it knocked my confidence all the way down to zero. Like, did not want to ride. There's about a 6 month period where I did not want to be on a horse, and I had to do a lot of my own coaching for myself. I studied with Tony Robbins and a handful of other psychologists, and like, how do I get through this? I don't want to be scared of riding my horse.
Right.
So I did. I got through it, and I actually discovered a pathway, a really clear, and I could talk about that one day with you, but simple step-by-step pathway that I've now taken a dozen students who've had similar injuries. I've taken probably 10 or 12 students now who have fallen down that same path where they've been injured and they don't want to ride anymore. And I've taken them and made a full recovery where they're riding with confidence and even more aware than they were in the beginning. So it's not just ignorance is bliss. You're actually aware and conscious and safe and happy. It's really fun to see people make the same shifts I was able to make.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I think we'll definitely have to do a second interview in the not too distant future, because I feel like there's more that we get to like dive deep into here. So, but in the meanwhile, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun getting to talk to you today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your channel, and I'd like to reciprocate and have you on my channel someday.
Oh, thank you.
We'll be in touch soon. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.
Sounds fun.
Bye-bye.